Good afternoon, class. This is your teacher, Miss Judy N.C. Pataksil, for PE and Health subject. How are you today? Welcome to PE and Health subject. Our learning competency for today's lesson is analyzes physiological indicators such as heart rate, rate of perceived exertion, and pacing associated with MVPAs to monitor and or adjust participation or effort. The lesson that we're going to discuss this afternoon is about physiological indicators, heart rate, rate of perceived exertion, pace, and pacing. When you engage in physical activities for health and fitness improvements, you need to monitor the effort you are giving. This is because the effort given in doing physical activities contributes to the achievements of your fitness goals. So, by monitoring your effort, you will be able to know if you are reaching at least a moderate intensity level and at most a vigorous one. You need to remember that it is important that your body is challenged to do more than what it is used to for changes to occur. If the physical activity you do is too easy for your body, changes, if any, would be minimal. You will be able to monitor your effort through physiological indicators. Physiological indicators are those signs that are physiologic in nature or have to do with bodily process. So this includes heart rate, rate of perceived exertion or RPE, and pacing. Each of these physiological indicators is important. So remember, each of the physiological indicators such as heart rate, rate of perceived exertion, and pacing are important. So let's first discuss what is heart rate. So heart rate is also known as pulse rate. So this is the number of times a person's heart beats per minute. So remember, when we say pulse rate, it is the number of times a person's heart beats per minute. It indicates the effort your heart is doing based on the demands you place on your body. When we say based on the demands you place on your body, it means that it is based on the exercise that you are doing. So the more demanding your physical activity is, the faster the heart rate. So when you're doing a vigorous one or vigorous activities, so it means that your heart rate will become faster. Each time your heart beats, it pumps blood into the arteries of your body. The surge of blood causes a pulse, which is what you feel by holding your fingers against an artery. The major arteries that are easy to locate and frequently used for pulse counts are first we have the radial artery. So radial artery is located just below the base of the thumb. So remember, your radial artery is located just below the base of your thumb. And the second major artery is the carotid artery. So the carotid artery is located just below the sides of jaw. So the carotid artery is just located below the sides of your jaw. So those are the two major arteries. To determine your pulse rate, locate your pulse using your index and middle fingers. Press gently to feel the pulse. Count the number of beats in 10 seconds and multiply by 6 to get your number of beats per minute. The 15-second count is also used by multiplying by 4 to get the number of beats per minute. So that's how you determine your pulse rate. The heart rate provides a good indicator of the relative challenge experienced during physical activity. Using the heart rate as a physiological indicator, maximal heart rate or max HR is typically used. Recommendations for physical activity indicate that physical activities used as exercises should be between 60 to 85% of your max HR to maintain or improve cardiovascular fitness. This means that for each exerciser, getting the max heart rate or HR and the heart rates equivalent to 60 to 85% of the max HR are important in achieving your fitness goals. So think of it as 60% heart rate is your moderate intensity and 85% heart rate is the limit of your vigorous intensity. Take note of the concepts of threshold of training and target zone. The threshold of training is the minimum amount of physical activity, which is the frequency, intensity, and time necessary to produce benefits. So when we say threshold, it is the magnitude or intensity that must be exceeded for a certain reaction. The target zone, on the other hand, begins at the threshold of training and stops at the point where the physical activity becomes counterproductive. According to Hodger in 2012, research indicates a more favorable prediction using the computation below than the equation 220 age. Here are the steps to get your target heart rate. First, you need to estimate your maximal heart rate or the max HR according to the following formula. Max HR slash max HR equals to 207 minus 0.7 times your age. Second, check your resting heart rate. Sometime in the evening after sitting quietly for 15 to 20 minutes, you may take your pulse for 30 seconds and multiply by 2 or take it for a full minute. Next, determine heart rate reserved using this formula. Heart rate reserve equals to max heart rate minus resting heart rate. And the last formula is calculate the training intensity at 30, 40, 60, and 85%. Then multiply heart rate reserve by the respective 0.30, 0.40, 0.60, and 0.85, and then add the heart rate reserve to all four training intensities. So example, 60% training intensity equals to heart rate reserve times 0.60 plus resting heart rate. Continuing the heart rate during exercise is quite difficult. It is still one of the best ways to accurately count exercise heart rate values. To do this, while exercising, continue moving while quickly locating the pulse, then stop and take a 10-second count. Then multiply the number by 6 to convert the heart rate to beats per minute. This measurement can be used to make necessary adjustments to reach your target zone. Next, we will discuss what is heart rate monitors or what are the heart rate monitors. So heart rate monitors can also be used to get your heart rate during physical activity. These monitors, which are strapped on your chest, work along with wrist watches that register the heart rate. Most models of heart rate monitors show the heart rate along with calories burned, target zone, and time or duration of exercise. However, more sophisticated models may feature other information. So, the picture shows as an example of a heart rate monitors. Next, we will discuss what is rate of perceived exertion. So this is an assessment of the intensity of exercise based on how you feel. It is basically a subjective assessment of effort which ranges from 6 or very very light to 20 very very hard with 1 point increments in between. The target zone for aerobic activity is from 12 to 16. So if you are engaged in physical activity, you rate your effort level based on how light or how hard you perceive. So a rating of 6 means that your effort level is very, very light. While a rating of 18 means that your effort is more or less than very, very hard. So think of each rating in the RPE as a reflection of your heart rate during the physical activity. When multiplied by 10, this means that an RPE of 6 is about a heart rate of 60, while an RPE of 18 is about 180 beats per minute. Since an RPE of 6 means your heart rate is only at 60 beats per minute, your physical exertion is very minimal. While an RPE of 18 means that your heart is doing 180 beats per minute, pushing yourself to the limit. So, this is the rating of perceived exertion or RPE table. So, in rating, we have 6 to 7. So, the description of 6 to 7 is very, very light. And the rating of 8 to 9, it is very light. 10 to 11, fairly light. And 12 to 13 rating, somewhat hard. So at least in the middle. And then 14 to 15, it is a hard activity. 16 to 17, very hard. And 18 to 19, very, very hard activity. And you are pushing yourself to the limit. So a practical way to know your level of effort is to try singing or talking while engaged in physical activity. So you can try it. You can try singing or talking while engaged in physical activity. So if you are able to or if you are still able to sing during physical exertion, then the RPE is probably just between 6 to 8. So it is very, very light. However, if you cannot hold a conversation, then the level of effort is high and the RPE is probably between 14 and 17. So, it is somewhat very hard or very, very hard. If you are jogging and are still able to sing, you could jog a bit faster to increase your RPE. However, if you cannot talk anymore, you could lower the effort level by jogging slower or inserting brisk walks between jog. So, rate your physical exertion to be able to maximize the effects of your participation in physical activity. Remember, the recommended target level of effort is from 12 to 16 or 120 to 160 beats per minute for your health to improve. Using the RPE also avoids the need to stop and count the heart rate during exercise. So when you are using the RPE, it will avoid the need to stop and count the heart rate during your exercise. With practice, most people can recognize when they are in the target zone using RPE. It now becomes easier to make necessary adjustment in the effort exerted since you have perceived the physical exertion accordingly. So lastly, we will discuss what is pace and pacing. So when we say pace and pacing, this refers to the rate or speed of doing physical activities. This means that a person can take it slow when engaged in physical activities or do them quickly depending on the FITT principle. So when we say FITT principle, it involves the frequency, intensity, time, and type. So pacing allows you to change the way you perform or complete an exercise or physical activity so that you can successfully see changes. So it regulates your participation in physical activities through gradual and careful introduction of changes in the physical activity, whether an increase in intensity, frequency, or participation. The normal frequency could be 3 to 4 times a week, which can be increased or decreased depending on the changes done in intensity and time. If intensity is increased, frequency and time could be decreased or vice versa. When you make modifications or adjustments in your exercise program, you have to take note of the principles of progression and adaptation. Increase elements in your exercise program gradually so that your body can adapt accordingly. Take serious note of the principle of overload as well. Too easy a load will not be beneficial to your body in the long run. So you need to at least increase the elements of your exercise program so that your body can adapt accordingly. If you have just started having a more active lifestyle, you may want to start with physical activities of relatively moderate intensity. Performing this type of activity at about 40% of your max heart rate or an RPE of 12, somewhat hard, for several weeks would be recommended for gradual adaptation. Time spent on physical activity may be shorter than the recommended 30 minutes. However, as fitness improves, accumulated minutes should at least account for 30 minutes a day, and the FITT principle, which is the frequency, intensity, time, and type, can be increased as well. So the table below shows recommended progression. So this is the table, which is a progression of activity, frequency, intensity, and time based on fitness level. So for example, in frequency, in low fitness, at least 3 days a week, and then in marginal fitness, at least 3 to 5 days a week, and in good fitness, at least 3 to 6 days a week. So in intensity, we have three kinds: the heart rate reserve, the maximum heart rate, the relative perceived exertion. So in heart rate reserve, in low fitness, at least 40 to 50%, in marginal fitness, at least 50 to 60%, and in good fitness, at least 60 to 85%. In maximum heart rate, in low fitness, we have 55 to 65%. In marginal fitness, we have 65 to 75 percent. In good fitness, we have 75 to 90%. And in relative perceived exertion, or RPE, we have 12 to 13. When we say 12 to 13, somewhat hard, 13 to 14, and 14 to 16. And the time, in low fitness, at least 10 to 30 minutes. In marginal fitness, at least 20 to 40 minutes. And in good fitness, at 30 to 60 minutes. So it is important that you monitor your fitness improvements, since this will eventually dictate your progression. If your body has adapted to the demands you place on it, then it would be best to progress to another level until you reach your optimum level of overload. This is the principle of progression. Following this principle, the load you place on your body should occur in gradual succession rather than in major bursts for safe and effective results. So the new challenge now posed on your body is how to advance to another level. So, however, as you become more fit, the rate of improvement levels off, as the principle of diminishing returns indicates. Once you get more and more fit, the benefit you get for each additional amount of activity may not be the same as before. When your physical activity level is high, you can expect to have lesser improvement despite additional amounts of physical activity. When this happens, the challenge is now on how to maintain that level of physical activity.
So, that's all for our lesson this afternoon. Do you have any questions? If none, let's proceed to your activity and to your quiz. For your activity and for your quiz, just follow the GAITF link on your screen. And if you have any more questions about the lesson that we have discussed this afternoon, you can contact me in my number 0955052397.
Goodbye and have a nice day.